Welcome, everyone. My name is James Salomons, and I'm a zero balancing practitioner based in Edinburgh, Scotland. In this video, you're going to meet Rebekah Harbour. She's a zero balancer, a zero balancing teacher, and an active member within the zero balancing community. And she currently lives in Hawaii. So Rebekah interviewed me over Zoom shortly after my first article was published in the International Journal of Zero Balancing and Transformative Touch. And that was the first time that I met her. And as we were preparing for the interview, we discovered that we had a lot of similar experiences. So I wanted to take the opportunity to get to know her better. And I'd also quite like you to get to know her better. You see, the zero balancing community is spread across a whole planet, and many of us are separated not just by borders, but by oceans and continents. And yet we're one community, one family. So if you're in the same boat as I was, and you haven't met Rebekah before, then it's my honor to introduce you to her. So I'd also like to apologize to Rebekah because this interview was recorded in December last year, and I'm only now, over 6 months later, putting the finishing touches to it, publishing it. As I was rewatching the conversation, some things really stood out to me. In particular, I think this video acts as a call to arms to all within the zero balancing community to contribute what you can and when you can. Rebekah also really honors and pays homage to zero balancing and the personal and life-changing impact it's had on her. So I've left this video largely unedited, as I'm beginning to prefer this more organic way of presenting these conversations to you, so you can see us as we are and for who we are. As always, links to whatever we discuss can be found in the description below. And now, without any further ado, let's dive in. So welcome, Rebekah.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to have a chat with me. And I was wondering if we could maybe start with how you came across zero balancing.
Yeah, sure. So I'd known from quite an early age that I wanted to be in a profession that helped others feel better about their bodies and their life. And I studied psychology, and I was going down that sort of mental health path, and got really frustrated actually halfway through my psych degree, realizing that people were being talked about as like these minds that were separate from the body. And my experience of my own mental health is very physical, and my well-being, they're very connected. And so I started looking for something that was more body oriented, and I went on a trip to Peru and had some San Pedro cactus experience that was pretty unsettling, actually, disturbing for me. And I was feeling.
Was that a guided ritual?
It was
this just
loosely
solo,
guided.
Okay.
I didn't choose well, if I'm honest.
Sure.
So, it was guided, but the woman guiding it was like, oh, I'm kind of having a bad week. And there was a lot of red flags that possibly it wasn't. Yeah. But even so, it may have just been, that's how the medicine hit me that time and what I needed to shake up some things. But I was pretty unsettled after that for months. But about a month after I got back to the US, I was visiting a family friend, and he's also a zero balancing practitioner and an acupuncturist in Maryland. And he asked me how I was doing, and I sort of burst into tears. Some people, you can't lie to. They kind of see right through.
Yeah.
And so he gave me a session right there on the spot, and it was amazing. It helped me to feel how out of my body I'd been. And the experience of the zero balancing session was of being back in my body and still feeling pretty wretched, but in my body I could actually do something about it. And it was this like, oh, here I am, I'm grounded, I am on the earth, and I do have support, and I can start moving forward and healing some of what's gone on. So that was pretty special. And so I sought out more zero balancing when I got back to New Zealand, and had a session and talked to the practitioner there, who suggested I should take a course. And I did. So after my second ZB session, I jumped into a level 1 training. And through that whole training, I was just feeling so much like rightness. I'm the kind of person who usually sort of stands at the back of a group and says, how's this going to disagree with my belief system? And how's this going to be, how am I going to catch the teacher out almost? And I just felt so in agreement with the principles, and I was learning so much, and it felt so right. And I thought, well, I'm going to dive into this and see how long, and I'll stay with it until I get bored or find I come up against the wall, and I'm still in it. And it's been 21 years now, so it's a pretty good run.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, because when you were doing your undergraduate training in psychology, you mentioned that you really wanted to help people, and particularly around mental health. So, what was it that led you to know you wanted to help people? And it's a double barrel question, because I'm also curious, how did you know that the body was so crucial?
Okay. Great questions. So first, there's looking back with more mature eyes. I can say that I probably had some aspects of my own inner world that probably needed some support that I wasn't aware of, and helping others is a way to address some of that. I wasn't aware of that at the time. I just knew that it felt really good to help people, and that I seemed to be good at it, that people felt grounded around me. They felt a sense of safety. They often opened up and wanted to share stories and get support in that way. And so it felt natural. I do think also that I've always been a seeker, and that felt like a path to that as well. That pure, like, following a spiritual practice seemed didn't draw me in the same way as learning more about the human psyche and learning more about how to support others felt like a form of spiritual practice and seeking to me.
Okay. And then the body, how were you drawn to that and working with that?
Well, gosh, I'm trying to put myself back into the sort of state of a 15-year-old, which is when I really knew clearly that this is what I wanted to do.
Oh, wow. That's quite young.
Yeah, it is. And I was looking into different psychology programs then. I can't quite remember, but I remember just knowing that there's a sense of holism, like how we treat our bodies relates to how we feel about the world, and how we process emotions, that even diet can affect how we're feeling. I had a pretty basic yoga practice at that point, and I knew that after a beautiful yoga class I would feel differently, and that I'd have more like joy. And so in those very simple ways, I knew that how you take care of your body and what your body's going through is a part of your mental experience.
Yeah.
I have a much more broad understanding of that now, and how traumatic experiences are stored physically, and how the body is its own. There isn't a mind-body separation, that we are a whole being with intelligence throughout our body.
Yeah. And do you see that San Pedro, I'm not going to call it a ceremony, that San Pedro experience?
Thank you.
Did you see that as really like shaking up the snow globe and actually making you realize, oh, actually, I have a lot of unprocessed stuff here.
Yeah, and it took a while to realize that. I think I had been and still am really good at not feeling a lot of difficult feelings, of being a really good being a good girl, being doing people pleasing and saying the right thing, fitting in, all of those things. And that was suppressing a lot of stuff throughout my life, like from probably infancy. And I did do a lot of living more intellectually. And that also got a lot of approval from society, right? Because I was smart, I did well in school. It was like, oh, great, great, great.
Yeah.
And I do think that San Pedro experience kind of exploded that, and it was not fun and not easy.
So it's been a bit of a journey, or it was a bit of a journey to try and, I was going to say piece yourself back together, but it's not like you weren't whole. Well, actually, maybe you weren't. I don't know. How would you describe it?
Um, reconnecting with so many parts of myself.
Sure.
Yeah, and integrating my integrating all of those parts that were cut off from each other, and so my sort of conscious awareness wasn't paying attention and wasn't able to pay attention to a lot of the other parts of me that were still there, but kind of pushed down.
Yeah. And you mentioned about, you were going to try zero balancing till you got bored of it or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're having this interview is kind of testament to the fact that you never got bored of it.
No, absolutely not. There's always more to learn. It keeps me excited, keeps me engaged. Yeah.
You're a really active member in the zero balancing community. Can you tell us a bit about what you do and how you're involved, how you contribute?
My favorite part of my involvement is teaching. I love teaching classes and helping bring the joy of zero balancing that I experience through to other people. And there's something really special about we're actually practicing zero balancing in that group setting. And so you've got the amplified energy field of the group there. Always been quite a talker, quite a verbal person. So it's quite fun to be also using that part of myself. So my teaching is probably the most important part for me. And I love teaching in different places around the world and connecting with different cultures, because even though I only teach at the moment in English speaking places, it's still widely different cultures between Hawaii and sort of Washington State in the US and New Zealand and other places that I've been teaching. So that's really fun challenge for me as well. But I'm also part of the International Journal of Transformative Touch, and we get to think about more of the theoretical and philosophical aspects of touch, of transformative touch, which how fun is that, and get to review articles that people are submitting and talk about how to support that aspect of the intellectual side of the work that we do. And then as the education committee member for the Touch Foundation, I'm really fascinated by the aspect of teaching and how do we share this information. And so when new courses come through, getting to read about them and give feedback and support them to be amazing classes is really fun too.
Cool. Wow. That's quite a lot.
It is. Yeah. Sometimes I think I'm crazy.
And on top of that, you also teach yoga, am I right?
I'm not actively teaching yoga at the moment. Okay. Yeah, I have a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old, and some things have had to be put aside.
But it wasn't zero balancing.
No,
No.
no, still seeing clients
Yeah.
actively at the moment. Yeah, no, can't stop.
Nice. So you mentioned some of the places where you teach. Do you teach, like, what classes do you teach? And do you do the core workshops? Do you do some of the more advanced workshops?
Yep, I do the core workshops, EB1 and 2. I do the main advanced ones, alchemy of touch, free the movable joints, geometry of healing, and I do a class that we developed in New Zealand that's based on ethics, but I call Power of the Therapeutic Relationship.
Okay.
And it's a really deep dive into the ethical connection, and as we were talking just earlier about the dynamic between the practitioner and client. And I'm working on a class for supporting people through pregnancy and postpartum, but I haven't actually finished writing that one yet, so it doesn't quite exist.
Oh, wow, cool. You've kind of led quite a fascinating life then, because you've been in New Zealand, you're now based in Maui, Hawaii, you've lived in West Virginia. I think one of the courses that you did was in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Like, that's quite unusual, isn't it? Or
I
maybe
suppose.
am I one of the people who just kind of stays in their little corner of the world? And I mean, I have traveled, but not that extensively.
No, I do get that feedback a lot, that to travel as much as I have been and to be as uh I don't want to say unrooted because that's not true, but as um floating as I have been for a while is quite unusual. um but it does, that's how I grew up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was born in Baltimore in the east coast of the US,
Okay.
moved to West Virginia when I was 3, and moved to New Zealand when I was 7, and then traveled back and forth regularly because I had family in both countries. My dad lived in the US, my grandparents, aunties, cousins, and we lived in New Zealand on a sheep farm. And so I never really identified with one place and one location and one culture and one that doesn't that would make life simpler in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's never been my reality. So I think it's easier for me to just get up and move around.
Yeah, and I would imagine, partly speaking from my own experience, but I would imagine that growing up in different places and, as you've already mentioned, different cultures, that you get to see the world from a very different perspective. You know that not everything is as fixed as people think it is, especially
Mm-hmm.
how we tend to view things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually an amazing gift, I think, to have been brought up sort of between cultures, as challenging as it has been in terms of my own identity. And but to, like you say, to be able to see that there's, what's considered the truth and reality within one cultural context or family context is so different in another. um it really helps you to be much more open, I
Mm.
think, to the world, and just take everything a little bit more carefully. There is no fixed truth for me in the same way, and I think that makes me a better observer and listener than I would have been
Yeah.
otherwise.
And I'm wondering, do you think that contributed to you being a seeker, as you described yourself? Because if those things aren't fixed, then what is true?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think I have been looking for some structure and some, something to anchor myself, because that's the downside of it, right? Is that you can feel a little bit, how do I land? How
Yeah.
do I live well in the world?
Yeah. And where is home?
Yeah, the constant question. Yeah, for a while I started seeing myself as, if the world is sort of a body, then perhaps I'm more of the circulatory system.
Okay.
And so instead of being, the pancreas or the stomach, that I'm part of the blood flow that moves and helps to transmit nutrients and knowledge and different things throughout the different organ systems. That helped me feel like I had a place.
Nice. I can see you as like a little white blood cell, like healing as you go along.
I like that idea.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Cool. So, yeah, I'm curious then. So, you've mentioned actually quite a lot of things. So, there's the journal that engages your intellectual side, there's your love of teaching, and I saw like a little glint in your eye when you mentioned like the amplified group experience of zero balancing. I mean, that is something that is very dear to my heart. And yeah, I want to be more in that field, if you will.
Yeah.
It's such a potent and enjoyable space to be in.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned about, this course that you're developing. So not the pregnancy one, but sorry, that you developed and that you teach in New Zealand. So can you tell us a bit more?
Therapeutic relationship.
Exactly. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So it started as an ethics course so that we would have an ethics component that was relevant for the zero balancing training. And we wanted to make it really interactive and juicy. And then I realized that there was so much in that gets sort of put to the side as like ethical rules you need to know. And there's so much more about how do we want to be in relationship with our clients? How do we want to, what role do we actually want to be in? How do we define that without just being unconscious about it and doing what we've seen others do? Yeah. And starting to recognize that we're at a place of actually defining and creating new roles, new archetypes, even for new healer archetypes. That we've, we come from sort of, there's like the priest, the witch, the doctor, and in a way they all have something in common. They're like they're separate from the community. They're on a pedestal, or they're on a, I guess some of them are more maligned, but they're still this like they're always in that role. And I feel like what we're moving towards, certainly what I'm interested in moving towards, is that I'm a very fallible human that falls apart and needs a shoulder to cry on, and yet I can also step into a practitioner role and be completely there and present for my client. And how do we talk about stepping in and out of that role? Then how do we be conscious about what the role is? And how do we be in that role in a way that is not taking power away from our client in order to make us be the special, important one, but to be in service of the true highest good of the client? So that's kind of in a nutshell what the class is about and what I'm really excited about right now.
Yeah, that's something. So is this a 3-day course?
I've been doing it as a 2-day course in person, and then a compressed version of it as a 4-hour online intensive.
Oh, nice. Have you got plans to do any of those online courses at some point over the coming year or two?
I haven't got anything on the schedule, but I should for sure. I did did one last year and one the year before, and they were both really juicy. So I should definitely get some on the schedule soon. Nice.
Yeah, New Zealand's a long way away from where I live, and presumably where a lot of other zero balancers live. So it'll be great if if you do that, and if we can get the word out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pick some dates and make it real.
Nice. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
So and part of me is also quite curious about this education committee role that you have within the Zero Balancing Touch Foundation, because you're in the New Zealand and Australia Association, and you help run that.
Yeah.
And then you've got this sort of, so for those people who don't know, the Touch Foundation kind of looks after zero balancing worldwide. So
Yeah.
you have your finger on the pulse quite locally in New Zealand and Australia and what's happening there. And then you have your finger on the pulse kind of in the worldwide scene.
Uh-huh.
So what is it like to kind of bridge those two worlds? And you know, on top of that, you're a practitioner and a teacher, so like you're
Yeah.
seeing people one to one, and like you've got, it feels
Yeah.
like you've got all the different like the whole spectrum, the whole hierarchy, if you will, of different
Yeah.
ways of engaging with zero balancing.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of fun to see that, because I've spent most of my life feeling like an outsider, and hearing it right now, I'm really not an outsider in the ZB community. I'm quite in it, which is
It
fun.
sounds like you're quite pivotal.
I love it. I love that it is an international organization, and that I can, you know, in a way, the way the organization is set up so that the teachers are independent and go out into the community and teach has really worked with my nature and my traveling nature. So I think that's been a really wonderful fit. And I love bringing aspects of, you know, what's going on in the US organization to what we do in New Zealand, and vice versa. Having, you know, New Zealand is a very small organization, the US is very big, and then the Touch Foundation is looking after them all. And so I like seeing those different perspectives. I'm fascinated by community, how communities work, and essentially we are a community, and how structures can support better community, because it's not just because people care or have a good idea that things fail or succeed. There is something to do with the overall structure and energy.
Yeah.
And so I'm both learning a huge amount about the structure and energy of communities and organizations through these different roles, and hopefully making positive contributions to both at the same time.
Wow. And does it take a lot of your time and energy to be kind of in these different committees, if for want of a better word, part to, you know, to play a role in these structures?
Sometimes I put more in when I have more, and less when I have less, and I've been supported to do that. So sometimes I'm able to mostly just show up to meetings and say, yeah, I'm here, and other times I'm able to do more like writing, editing, contributing in more material ways. So it depends. You know, the last few years have been quite intense for me, having 2 children and being in the early childhood like parenting bubble. It's a lot.
Yeah. I've never done it myself, but I've seen it from, you know, the outside. It looks quite intense.
Yeah, it's quite intense. And honestly, being part of these different in these different roles in the organization helps me to feel connected to something bigger than myself, which I always need, but I really need right now. Yeah, because I think I might go a little bit more crazy if I if I was so just in my day-to-day world with the kids and the family, which is obviously challenging, wonderful, and all the full spectrum, but it's really great to be connected to something bigger as well.
Yeah. And are there areas where you think, you know, if you've been engaging with this idea of community and how structures can support them, are there areas in which you think, you know, maybe we need more people, we need more help? Is there anything that obvious that kind of stands out from, you know, because you've got this quite unique vantage point?
Yeah, that's great question. And I think, yes, I think the more we all bring our gifts, you know, the organization is just made up of each individual. And so the more that we bring our gifts to share, I'm talking to every practitioner, even every client, receiver of zero balancing, every teacher, like we are zero balancing in a sense. And so the more that we bring our joy of it and our queries and our gifts back into the collective, the more that can support us back. And it's kind of the same as moving out of a patriarchal practitioner client model of the practitioner knows and takes care of, and the client can just kind of go, take care of me, I have no responsibility. I think I'm looking at the same shift organizationally of like, oh well, the board takes care of me, oh well, the organization makes the decisions and I can just coast along. That actually we're all, if we can all realize we're active participants and take on some of that responsibility, it makes a huge difference.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that, and I can see how that links into you know, that sort of what you describe as a patriarchal sort of model within the treatment room.
Right.
Wow, I'd never thought of it that way.
Honestly, I hadn't either. It was just in that moment, but it feels right.
Yeah. So that we all play our part. We're all empowered to, if you will, carry the light of zero balancing into the world. So that's kind of a throwback to the certification and sort of graduation ceremony. But okay, cool.
Yeah. And that's something wonderful about the zero balancing form, is that it really, there's an openness and a flexibility for us each to make it our own and find our own expression with it.
Yeah.
And that's explicit in the protocol and in the training. And at the same time, we honor that middle C. We want everyone around the world receiving a zero balancing session to recognize it as ZB and to have a certain quality to it, right? So we're not just calling it ZB and doing whatever we want. We're working within that structure and bringing ourselves really into it and finding our own way with it. So I love that about the way that this beautiful system is set up for us to do that. And I think that's true with our organization as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's something within the principles of ZB that's so universal. You know, it doesn't matter if you're from West Virginia or from Baltimore or New Zealand or Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the middle. I mean, it is the middle, seeing that everyone gets taught the same core, but the principles kind of hold fast. And they apply to like different areas of our lives. And there's something really juicy in ZB, and what you mentioned about, you know, it sort of encouraging us to be ourselves and engage with the teaching and the method, the modality, and yet it enlivens us to be true to ourselves, to be authentic. And how do we then marry the two, you know? And so we all bring something different to the table. We all have a unique touch, and we've all got our own experiences and our own interests and our own passions and our own hobbies and skills and all that outside of ZB. And how can we then bring that to the table, and not to the treatment table, but to the table as in to the table of the zero balancing community? How can we be of service to the community?
Knowing that comes back to us too, and into our practice, that it's not just this kind of service because you should to be good, right? But that we're actually then get to participate and receive in this amazing way, that we get to grow the energy field that is zero balancing. And then it serves us all.
Yeah, and I'm reminded how we feel better after giving a zero balancing session, and I would
Uh-huh.
imagine it's the same in this context. You know, the more we kind of contribute to the community, the more we feel better, and the community feels better. Like everyone wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
Cool.
because there is, there's always going to be personalities and people that you rub you the wrong way or you rub the wrong way, and
Oh,
we're
that never
human, so.
happens. To be clear, it does.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it does, and that's inevitable, unfortunately. Seems to be, but that can also be. I don't know. For some reason, I have this deep trust in the system itself, and so so I know that whatever personality differences come up, that's exactly what it is, and I'm not sure how to put words to it, but there's something about for me, I'm in service of the zero balancing, the actual work that we're doing, and the organization is simply a structure to support that. And so I try not to get caught up in any of the individuals and their stuff around it, including my own.
Yeah.
Is that having any clarity yet, what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'm hearing is that you're in service to the essence of zero balancing, to the work itself. And it doesn't really matter kind of what comes up in, you know, whatever context when you're engaging with the structures, when you're engaging with, you know, the Touch Foundation or an association, or, you know, I know what it's like to be on a committee. I've been on several, and you know, we've all had colleagues and things like that who rub us the wrong way, within zero balancing or not. It's just the nature
Yeah,
of things, isn't it?
yeah,
And it's not necessarily anything to do with the person, but it just, these things arise, and it's like, how do you engage with serving the essence of zero balancing and not react to whatever's presenting itself in any given moment?
yeah, exactly. Thank you. Perfectly reflected back. I think, as you say that, it reminds me of working with a client, working with a body,
Yeah.
and in the human body, there's going to be areas of tension or friction between different things going on, and it's I'm there to serve the highest good of the whole being. And so I'm not being like, oh, you stupid tibia, why are you over here and not supporting the femur?
That could be quite
Can't
an
you see?
amusing zero balancing session, to be fair.
Yeah. Like, can't
Potentially
you
not a
see
very
you're off
good
at an
one, but I would
angle?
love that. It's like zero balancing comedy.
That could be interesting. Maybe we should try that next time.
Yeah.
Right, but that's not going to help the whole being. To help the whole body is to be like, oh, tibia, you seem to be over here, and femur, you're going over here. That's did you know that? Can I just hold this and hold these two bones in a way that they can communicate and shift as they're ready or need to? And I don't know what that is, because I don't know myself what the whole needs of the body are.
Yeah.
And so if I can do that as well for our organization, amazing. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
Sure. Oh.
Sometimes I am the tibia.
So yeah, this kind of real sense of service shines through, this sense of wanting to contribute, wanting to help this work presumably reach larger audiences, or to fulfill its potential, whatever that
Yeah,
may end up being.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been such an incredible part of my life. I first had my first full session when I was 23, and it was life-changing. Did my first course at 24, and it was so, yes, this gives language to a lot of experiences that I have in my life that I don't know how to talk about. This makes the energy body real and tangible. This gives me a way to communicate and work with stuck energy flows in my body, and pain and discomfort, and in ways that make sense to me. And it's so rich. It's such a rich doorway into this world. And I say doorway in because I think people can find their own. Zero balancing isn't the only way to start to really understand and engage with structure and energy, and working with healing, right? There's lots of doorways in, but for me, this has been such a rich doorway in, and it engages the intellect at the same time as the more subconscious parts of ourselves, which is really important for me. I want to be engaged fully, like intellectually, through my hands, through my body, to engage with this material, and I just want more people to have access to it, and to realize the richness, and how we do have the potential to change so much that's stuck in our own lives and our own bodies, and to work through and have support in doing that. I just think if we could all have more ZB courses for everyone, it would be amazing. But
yeah, wow, it sounds like zero balancing really confirmed for you your own experiences in life, your own like it spoke to a part of you that other things never spoke to.
Yeah.
And it did it totally. It didn't do it just speaking to the left part but not the right part.
Right.
It
right.
spoke to the whole of you.
Yeah. And gave me a model that I could hold on to understand one level, and then as I've deepened my knowledge, I've been able to understand more. But there's enough that I felt a real sense of grasping the big picture to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be able to go deeper and deeper with that, and learn more and more, and add more in, as my levels of experience have broadened.
And that's a lot of experience.
Yeah, I guess it's been 21 years now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And it still speaks to you in that way. It still, does it?
It does, because there's always more breadth of understanding. One of the interesting things that I've learned is that receiving zero balancing sessions and giving the sessions has broadened my capacity to hold more amplified energy fields while staying more present. And that's not something that anyone told me, or if they told me in ZB1, I wouldn't have understood what that meant, right? I had to learn it. And it means that I can now be in a much more charged, amplified field, or have like quite huge experiences, and part of me stays fully conscious and present. And it doesn't mean I need to zone out or like whatever it is. I do feel expanded, but expanded and very here at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's been amazing. And so I think that with that comes the ability to understand things in a different way. And so I might use the same words, but I've had a real felt experience of something that means something different to me now. Words can be so limited, can't they? They're amazing. And then there's the point where you can't.
Totally. But I hear you. I hear, partly because I have my own experience of that. And I remember in particular at one point almost kind of being quite stretched because I was kind of like holding space for quite a lot of what was happening, you
Yeah.
know, because there was this uh, building project in, that I was orchestrating, big building project, and it involved neighbors and the council and this, that, and the next thing. And I had this feeling of really being stretched and yet being able to
Yeah.
be really present at the same time
Yeah.
and kind of contain it all,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
When in the past I would have been completely overwhelmed, tired, stressed, I would have been avoiding certain
Yeah.
responsibilities, duties, that kind of thing. And I know it's not exactly the same, but I've had similar experiences in, like, I teach introductory workshops now in
Cool.
zero balancing, and um, yeah, like holding the group space
Yeah. Yeah.
while at the same time having my own experience as to with what's going on and all that
Right.
kind of stuff, you know?
Right.
Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
Yeah. So, it can show up in lots of different ways, but one way is in the classroom and teaching. In early teaching, I needed, and it was appropriate to keep a tighter ship in a way, and
Yeah.
really not leave a lot of room and not let the group get too expanded, because my capacity wasn't there to hold a whole group of expanded people and be on that same path myself. And that's totally appropriate.
Yeah.
Now I feel much more able to bring more looseness in. I can hold a softer container that can kind of do a little bit more of this and let people feel more of that. And maybe there's a little bit more, it doesn't always feel like joy and happy. Sometimes there's more difficult things come up, and that's okay, because of the ability to still hold that and bring in more structure if needed, and not get swept up in it. And to shift that too, like sometimes, oh no, we gotta bring in a little more structure here because things are floating away, just as we do in a session, right? Someone starts to get a little depleted, or you feel like they're too expanded, you start to give some nice structural massage through the trapezius muscle, and you sort of say, how you doing, and bring in a little bit more pep. And it's the same, and it's become the same in different aspects of my own life. I can let myself get a little bit more floaty and expanded in different moments, and know that I still have the capacity to bring in more structure when I need to.
Yeah. And it's the key is having the awareness, isn't it? The awareness as to when you're in one state over another, and actually having the choice and the control as to where you put your awareness and what spaces you hold at what time.
Yeah, fully. And in some this can be called like the development of the witness state, and so that no matter what's going on, there's a part of you that remains this witness and is watching and has this level of consciousness that can call in different support when needed.
Wow. See, this is the kind of conversations that I don't feel often happen.
Yeah.
Even between zero balances. I mean, it might happen in like a residential workshop or something like that. But, I thrive on hearing other people's growing experiences in zero balancing, because it enables me to have reference points to my own growth. Not that mine's necessarily the same as yours, but it gives me some sort of affirmation that what's happening to me, and presumably other people who are listening to this, that it's part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's part of that deepening of clarity around the zero balancing principles and really embodying them and putting them into practice in daily life.
Yeah, because that's where it's at, right? I mean, if we're not putting them into practice in daily life, then not what's the point exactly, but there's so much potential there, so much potential to use these principles every moment. I consider everything I learn as I become a better practitioner, I become better at life.
Yeah.
I'm better able to step in and out of roles in my life, better able to hold space, better able to recognize structure and energy. So much.
Yeah. And speaking of roles, I heard that young infant that you mentioned earlier. Is everything okay?
I think they're okay right now. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I should think about winding up pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's just so refreshing to connect with an experienced zero balancer and to hear you talk so enthusiastically and with authenticity about your own experiences and what engages you in the work, and how you feel the structure and energy of the organization worldwide is and the community worldwide is, and even taking it down to the treatment room and that whole idea of what is the right relationship between us and the people who come to see us.
Yeah. It's the same principles we can apply at every level. Yeah. Well, it's been quite a pleasure, and let's do more.
All right, I'm game. I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, I'm game. Yeah, let's do it.
Why not?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because I think seeing each other in person is going to be like, I mean, I'm not going to Hawaii or New Zealand anytime soon. Those are the two farthest places that I could fly to. But who knows? Who knows in the future? But I would love to chat more. And thank you so much for your time. And I think we really covered some juicy ground. And it was nice to kind of have that back and forth. It felt more like a discussion than an interview. Certainly in the latter half. And I kind of prefer that, to be honest with you, because interviews feel quite one-sided. Like I'm asking you, hey, talking about that patriarchy again, eh?
Right. Yeah. Exactly, because in honesty, it is a collaboration. I mean, it's always going to be. So we can, fully own that part of it. And I agree.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can co-collaborate again, and people who are listening to this can maybe feel fired up to collaborate more and contribute more to the zero balancing community, wherever they may be.
Yep. And however that feels and looks to them.
So that's the end of the interview with Rebekah. I really hope you enjoyed it. She's got a couple of workshops lined up. She has freely movable joints coming up in Maui, Hawaii this September, and Alchemy of Touch in New Zealand this October. If you're interested in working with Rebekah or attending one of her courses and workshops, then check out Rebekah's website, www.rebekahharbour.com. The link's in the description below. And if you like today's interview and would like to support the channel, then please subscribe, leave a comment, or give it a thumbs up. And as always, links to more information about zero balancing can also be found in the description below. So if you're curious about this therapy and want to give it a try, then my sincere wish is that you find a practitioner near you. Until the next time, bye for now.